Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my 2025-26 Championship Table Predictions. If you do want to enjoy today's video, please make sure to drop a like on there for me and subscribe to the channel as well. If you are new, can we try and hit 100 likes on today's video? And don't forget to get your thoughts in down in the comment section down below. Do you agree or disagree with my prediction? Which 3 teams do you think will be relegated down into League One? Which 4 teams do you think will make the playoffs? And which 2 teams do you think will be automatically promoted into the promised land of the Premier League? We'll start out firstly then in 24th position, and I'm going to go with Sheffield Wednesday. They've obviously had an absolutely awful summer. They've lost a brilliant manager in Danny Rowe, but clearly he didn't want to be at Wednesday, pretty much applying for any job possible over the last 6-8 months, something like that. And you look at Sheffield Wednesday's transfer business, obviously they're under some type of embargo at the moment, so they've not brought anybody in through the door. They've lost some real significant players. Obviously they've lost Gassama to Rangers, they've lost Josh Windass as well to Wrexham on a free transfer. Michael Smith's gone to Preston. They've lost Masaba over to Samsunspor in Turkey. It has just been an awful summer, and it's just about trying to get through and survive as a football club. Chansiri is an absolute tool of an owner. I feel really sorry for the Wednesday fans who are having to go through all this nonsense again. They've got like a 15-man squad. They've got one goalkeeper on the books, and that's Pierce Charles. Apart from that, there's just not really enough in this squad, is there? Obviously, Barry Bannon signed a new deal with the club, but I'll be amazed if they manage to finish even 23rd, never mind avoid relegation this season, which is a shame because I really like Wednesday as a club, but yeah, for me they're going bottom. In 23rd position then, I'm going to go with Preston North End. Obviously last campaign they finished in 20th, avoiding relegation by just a single point. Yes, they obviously had better goal difference than Luton Town, but for me, I feel like with the teams that are coming up from League One being extremely strong, Paul Heckingbottom at Preston, it's just kind of been a bit of a meh sort of time so far, and I do like some of the business that Preston have done. You know, they've brought in a lot of decent free transfers, but I think it's just decent. I don't think there's really too many standouts. I like the signing of Daniel Everson, who's obviously returned to the football club, but apart from that, I wouldn't say any of their other business is massively standing out. Daniel Jefferson still only somehow 21 years of age. I thought he'd be like 26 by now, but I look at the quality in that Preston squad. Obviously, they have lost the striker Emil Rees to Bristol City as well, and I just think this season it's going to be one of them for Preston where they just don't quite have enough to get over the line, and unfortunately I see them not being in that mid-table battle with Bristol City this season. I think they're going to go down. In 22nd position then, and the final team that I believe will be relegated this season, I'm going with Stoke City. Now obviously last campaign they finished at 2 points above the relegation zone, and I just think again with the quality that is coming up from League One, Stoke could be in a little bit of trouble this season. Obviously Matt Robbins is a decent manager. Their transfer window on the whole hasn't been awful, but I just don't think they've done enough business. Obviously they've brought in Talovarov from Plymouth for just less than £2 million, which I don't think is an awful signing. Aaron Cresswell comes in as well on a free transfer. I like the signing of Jamie Donnelly, who's coming on loan from Tottenham's under-21s. He was great for Leyton Orient last campaign, but I look at the quality in this Stoke squad. Victor Johansson is heavily rumoured to be potentially getting a Premier League move as well at the time of recording, and I just think this season it might be just a little bit too much for Stoke. They've obviously always been in around 17th pretty much ever since they did get relegated, but I think there's going to be a real lack of goals in this Stoke squad next season, and defensively they don't look amazing if I'm being completely honest. So unfortunately for the Potters, I'm backing them in 22nd this year. In 21st position and just avoiding the relegation places this season, I am going with Hull City. They finished in 21st last campaign, finished level on points with Luton, who were relegated, only survived by goal difference in the end, and that was because they didn't concede anywhere near the amount that Luton did. Luton actually scored more goals than Hull last campaign. Hull actually averaged less than 1 goal per game over the entire season. Obviously Hull have done this really weird thing over the last couple of years where they've had good managers and then sacked them, brought in a better manager in the case of when Ruben Sellers came in. Obviously they had Liam Rosenior as well, and then they've gone and sacked, I'm pretty sure it's Ruben Sellers as well. Obviously, he's now gone to Sheffield United. And I look at the transfer business that Hull have done. Obviously, there's a lot from abroad, which I can't really comment all too much on. But Semi Ajayi is a decent Championship player, but he's hardly ever fit. Dylan Phillips, I assume, is going in there to be a backup. They brought in John Lundstrom as well on loan from Trabzonspor. Obviously, he'd been at Sheffield United previously. I look at the departures out of Hull, and there's not really been anything that significant. I wouldn't say. Obviously there's a couple that they might have liked to have kept, but it's nothing too significant. And I look at the quality that is in this Hull squad. I don't think they're really going to be challenging much higher, if I'm being completely honest. I do see them being in another relegation battle this season. I think they could struggle for goals again at this campaign. They're going to be hoping the likes of Abu Kamara and Liam Miller can come good this season, but as of right now I'm backing Hull to just about avoid relegation. In 20th position, I'm going with last season's League One playoff final winners in Charlton Athletic. Now that playoff campaign for Charlton, while it was successful, it was the worst 3 matches of football I've ever had the pain of having to watch. And obviously Charlton were very long ball in those matches, and that was the only football I've watched of Charlton under Nathan Jones. It turns out they're actually quite a possession-based side, and obviously they've spent a lot of money in this summer transfer window. Over £3 million on Charlie Kelman, £2 million on Rob Apter, £2 million on Harvey Nibbs, £1.5 million on Oluwafe, £1 million on Kaminsky, $750,000 on Rankin Costello. They've brought in a couple of decent free transfers as well in Amari Bell and Sonny Carey, and they've also brought in Reece Burke for an undisclosed fee. They've not really lost that much of too significance. They might have liked to have kept Thierry Small, but you could certainly argue they have improved with the people that they have brought in. They've signed a lot of League One's best players from last campaign, and a lot of players who are yet to come into their prime. Oluwafe, Nibbs, Apter and Kelman, I think particularly, obviously they are the 4 players have spent the most money on, but them for me are the real standout signings to go along with already some really good quality in that squad. Lloyd Jones was one of the best, if not the best centre-half in League One last campaign. They got a couple of decent midfield options in there as well, and obviously Matty Godden was scoring a lot of goals last campaign. I think Charlton, they've got a good manager, I would say, in Nathan Jones. I felt like his antics when Charlton had reached Wembley, where he was, almost laying on the floor in front of the Sky cameras. He's very theatrical, very dramatic, and that just is Nathan Jones. Me personally, I would find that incredibly cringe if he was my manager. I'm sure Charlton fans might have mixed opinions on that behaviour, but it got them promoted in the end, so I don't think they'll care all too much. As for Charlton, though, I do think they'll be fine this season. I do see them avoiding relegation. Similar to Oxford last campaign, I think a lot of people are already writing Charlton off, but not for me. I think they'll comfortably survive this season. I say comfortably, it's only a couple of places above the drop zone, but I don't think they're going down. In 19th position, I'm going with Watford FC. Now obviously last campaign they finished in 14th, and I'd say on the whole had a pretty solid season under Tom Cleverley, and I thought it was very harsh, that sacking. It's very unlike Watford to be doing these unfair sackings. They've brought in Paulo Pozzolano, who is not somebody I can say I know anything about, never even heard of the guy before, but he's a 42-year-old Uruguayan. Looking at the transfer business that Watford have done, there's a lot that I'm not 100% sure on. There's a lot from overseas, which I can't really comment on. An FC Bayern Munich second division player, which is Iran Kunda, who is a 19-year-old right winger they've spent about £2.5–3 million on. I don't know players like that. I do know Nathan Baxter is a solid goalkeeper option. I do know Hector Cipriano is a very good midfielder as well at just 24 years of age. I look at the departures out of Watford, it doesn't look like there's been anything of massive significance really, and I think Watford, they're just kind of going to be a bit meh next season. There's nothing really too much to write home about there. Striking options don't look particularly amazing. I don't see there being loads of goals in there, but I think they'll be fine this season for Watford. They're not going to be in any real trouble of relegation, but it's just the constant managerial changes and uncertainty I feel like makes it hard to back Watford to have that consistency to push on up the table. In 18th position, I am going with QPR. Last campaign it finished in 15th and had a pretty just kind of average season. 7 points above the drop zone, 12 points off of the playoffs. Nothing really to write home about. Obviously they've lost the manager, is it Cifuentes, to Leicester, I want to say he's gone, and obviously they've brought in Julian Stefan, a 44-year-old Frenchman who again I don't know anything about, but I think QPR have actually made some really good signings. Karamoko Dembele, I think at 22 years of age, is a really good option. Kwame Poku on a free transfer is a brilliant signing. Roman Burrell for £1 million, great finisher if you can certainly create the chances for him. As a Bradford City fan, we had him on loan a couple of years ago, and to see how he's developed and kicked on his career is absolutely great to see, because he played about 3 substitute games for us in the COVID season. Obviously, they've got a really good transfer fee in for Charlie Kelman. He's had one really good season at Leyton Orient in League One, and they've got potentially up to £5 million for him. I look at the further departures out of QPR, and there's nothing that's really standing out as a massive blow, if I'm being completely honest. Obviously, Kelman hadn't really contributed to QPR's first team. Maybe this prediction in hindsight does seem a little bit harsh, but I think there's a little bit better quality higher up the table, and I don't know enough about the QPR manager to really make a firm comment that they are going to push up on the table. They have made some good signings. 18th position, I think might be slightly disappointed with that one. In 17th position, I am going with Blackburn Rovers. Obviously, last campaign they finished in 7th and were only just outside of the playoffs by 2 points. But I feel like this campaign, it is going to be a bit of a drop-off. Obviously, Valérien Ismaël is a very hit-or-miss manager, and I feel like they could build towards something next campaign. I look at their incomings, and pretty much all of them are from abroad, so I can't really comment too much. They've brought in Sean McLaughlin, a 28-year-old centre-half from Hull, for around £500,000. The rest of them are all from abroad, so I genuinely can't tell you anything about that. But I do think they have had a couple of pretty significant departures. Obviously, Callum Britton's gone to Middlesbrough for an undisclosed fee. They've lost Tyrese Dolan on a free transfer as well. Andy Weimann has rejoined Derby. They've lost Rankin Costello as well to Charlton. And because I know about the quality of a Tyrese Dolan, and I don't know enough about these players that are coming in from Portugal or from Sweden as well, I look at the remaining players that are still in this Blackburn squad. The fact that they've given Adam Forshaw a new contract after releasing him again just seems absolutely bizarre, doesn't it? But I look at the striker options, and I just don't think there's enough in this Blackburn team to really kick on for next campaign. So yeah, it might be a little bit of a decline from last campaign, but 17th position, let me know down below, Blackburn fans, would you be happy with that? In 16th position, I am going with Oxford United. Obviously, last campaign they finished in 17th. I'm backing the Yellows to have a slight improvement on last campaign. I feel like they've got a really good manager in Gary Rowett. He certainly improved the Oxford squad when obviously Des Buckingham did get his marching orders. I think they've recruited pretty well on the whole so far. I think Brodie Spencer from Huddersfield is a really solid addition. Looking at the departures, there's nothing really too significant. Obviously, Ruben Rodriguez has gone over to the Serie A. They've lost El Mazzuni, but he didn't really play much last campaign either. They've got Will Goodwin out on loan as well after spending big money on him a couple of seasons ago. But I think they've got a good squad. There's some real talent in here. They've got a great centre-half in Michael Hellick, for example. They've got some good wingers. They've got some real good young talent mixing with the experience in there as well, like your Tom Bradshaws, your Matt Phillips. I think they're going to be in for a successful season again, Oxford, and I'm backing them to once again comfortably survive. In 15th position, I am going with Derby County. Last campaign obviously finished in 19th and were just 1 point above the drop zone in the end, but I'm backing them to have a little bit more of a successful season this year. I think John Eustace is a very good manager. They've spent some good money in this transfer window as well. Obviously, they brought in Patrick Aguiman, a 24-year-old striker over from America. They've spent nearly £7 million on him, so that'll obviously be a sign that they're hoping it does come off. But they've recruited well in the free transfers. The likes of Ryan Brewster, the likes of Andy Weimann, Danny Bath will provide some experience as well at the back. Carlton Morris from Luton for an undisclosed fee, I do think is a good signing. Bobby Clark's coming on loan from RB Salzburg, which I think is a good addition. And they've got Owen Beckin as well on loan from Liverpool. Looking at the departures out of Derby, obviously Mendes Lang has dropped down to League 2, but apart from that, there's nothing of any real significance in the departures. So they've brought in a decent amount of bodies. They've brought in some good experience in there as well. I see them kicking on next campaign. They've got a good manager, so I'm backing the Rams to finish in 15th. Obviously, if you are enjoying, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. In 14th position, I am going with Portsmouth FC. Last campaign, they finished in 16th and finished 5 points above the drop zone, and I'm backing them to have a little bit more of a successful campaign this time around. They've got a really good manager in John Massinho. They've not done loads of transfer business in this window so far. Again, a lot of their business is done abroad, and as a man who supports the club, we've largely been in League 2 for the last 6 or 7 seasons, or we have been in League 2 for the last 6 or 7 seasons. I don't really know much about the Bulgarian division, if I'm just being completely honest. But John Swift from West Brom, I feel like, is that next sort of level of signing for Portsmouth to kick on, and if they are wanting to push on to the next level, they've not really lost anything of too much significance. They've kind of got rid of them squad fringe sort of players that just weren't quite good enough for the Championship. The likes of Yenge, Bramall, Lowry, Scully obviously was nowhere near good enough. Paddy Lane, Riley Towler was behind Marlon Pack in terms of a centre-half pick last campaign as well. Christian Sadie not good enough for the Championship. So I think The Portsmouth squad, yeah, they need a couple more signings in there for me, but I think on the whole, it is going to be really solid. They've got a great centre-half partnership in Regan Poole and Connor Shaughnessy. They've got a great striker in Colby Bishop, and I'm backing them to finish around mid-table this season. In 13th position and completing my bottom half, I'm going to go with Middlesbrough FC. Last campaign finished in 10th, 4 points off of the playoffs, and I did see Michael Carrick lose his job. Since then, they've obviously brought in Rob Edwards, who is very much a let's try and connect with the fans together as one, talk, and kind of mask over the performances a little bit. Looking at their pre-season, obviously my team Bradford City did play against Middlesbrough. They looked very toothless, and they've not really done that much business. They've brought in a holding midfielder in Abdoulaye Kante, which has spent, a couple of £1 million on him. They've brought in Alfie Jones from Hull City, which I think is a smart addition, and Callum Britton as well from Blackburn Rovers, which again I do think is a smart addition, but they need firepower. They need a goal scorer. I know they've been linked again with Chuba Akpom. Obviously, they've sold Josh Coburn for over £6 million this summer, but there's just not been enough transfer business. Obviously, there's going to be no Ben Doak as well this season, and I just don't think there's enough goals in Marcus Forss, Sonny Kinch. Tommy Conway probably could provide that, but you can't be solely relying on him. They need to bring a striker or two in through the door to even challenging anywhere higher. They've still got Hayden Hackney at the time of recording as well, but obviously he'll probably get his big move to an Ipswich or somewhere like that, maybe a Leeds or a Burnley in the Premier League, but I see Middlesbrough having a slight regression from last campaign personally. Into my top half then, in 12th position, I am going with Swansea City. That would be a slight regression from last campaign where they did finish up in 11th. Obviously, Alan Sheehan was appointed as the Swansea manager right at the end of last campaign, and they've spent some decent money in this summer. They've spent over £5 million on a winger from Sweden. They've brought in Ethan Galbraith from Leyton Orient, which I think is a really good signing. Cameron Burgess as well on a free transfer from Ipswich, I think is a brilliant addition. Ricardo Santos, if he can rediscover his form from a couple of seasons ago, could prove to be a smart signing, but based off last campaign, I'm not entirely convinced by that one. Obviously, they've lost Harry Darling, which is a little bit of a blow. They've sold Jerry Yates as well down to Luton, but I think on the whole, they're going to come out of the window stronger than when they went into it. They've already got some decent options currently in their squad as well. They could maybe do with another striker, but obviously there's still plenty of time left in this transfer window. Cameron Commongreve as well did very well on loan at Bromley last campaign. I can tell you that as a man who watched a lot of League 2 football. But Swansea, I think they'll be happy again with another top half finish personally. In 11th position then, I'm going to go with Bristol City. I do think there'll be a slight regression from last campaign where obviously they finished up in the playoffs in 6th position, but they were absolutely awful, weren't they? In both of the playoff matches, it was just a season too early for them, and obviously they've lost the manager Liam Manning to Norwich. They've brought in Gerhard Struber, obviously has previously spent time with Barnsley, and a look at the transfer business that has been done. Obviously they've lost Naki Wells, they've sold Taylor Gardner-Hickman as well to Birmingham, did very well there last campaign. They've not really lost much of real significance. They've brought in the likes of Emile Rees, Adam Randell from Plymouth, I do think is a smart addition, but I just think the quality at the top end of the Championship is going to be a bit stronger this season. I do see them having a slightly worse campaign than last year. I don't think they'll be awful and massively fall off, but I do think there'll be a slight regression. So unfortunately, Bristol City fans, I'm having you in mid-table this year. Back where you belong, some would say. In 10th position, I'm going with West Bromwich Albion. Last campaign, they finished in 9th and finished 4 points off of the playoffs. And I feel like for a number of years now, West Brom have just been a team that were always in between 7th and 10th and always just seem to miss out on the playoffs, and I think it'll happen again this season. Despite spending around £10 million on transfer fees, they've obviously brought in a striker from Norway for around £5 million. They've brought in Nat Phillips as well from Liverpool for about £3 million. They've brought in George Campbell, another centre-half from Montreal in the MLS for around £1 million as well. They've spent big money. They've not really lost much of real significance. They've got rid of a few players who weren't particularly helping out over the last couple of campaigns, the likes of John Swift, Semi Ajayi, Grady Diangana as well. And I feel like this season, again, for West Brom, they'll just kind of be in and around where they have been for the last couple of years. They've got a decent-ish manager in Ryan Mason, but I just don't think there's enough in that West Brom squad personally. I look at the firepower at the top end of the pitch. Daryl DK can't keep himself fit. Carlin Grant, Josh Madger maybe, potentially, but again, there's a lot of injury concerns about the strikers, and defensively, they clearly did need a few improvements as well. They could maybe do with another central midfielder, but I think there's more business that needs to be done for West Brom before they really challenge for that top 6. In 9th position, I'm going to go with Leicester City, obviously relegated from the Premier League last campaign. No Jamie Vardy in a Leicester shirt for the first time in God knows how long, and I just feel like with the point deduction that's probably going to come their way, I don't think they'll quite have enough to make it into the playoffs this campaign. There's been very little transfer business that has happened. They've brought in Asmir Begovic, a 38-year-old goalkeeper, and that is about it. There has been a couple of departures, obviously Jamie Vardy, Danny Ward, Daniel Everson have all left the club on free transfers. They've sold Conor Cody to Wrexham as well for around £2 million. There's obviously still a lot of quality in this Leicester squad, especially in the Championship. Harry Souttar did very well at Sheffield United last campaign. Still got the likes of Wilfred Ndidi, Oliver Skipp, Harry Winks, who I think are all good enough players for the Championship. Steffi Madidide and Fatuwa as well, still at the football club. Patson Daka. Like, there's more than enough quality in the Championship in this squad, but I think with the points deduction, it's probably going to be quite significant. They probably are eventually at some point in the transfer window going to lose some of these better players as well. I see Leicester missing out on the playoffs this campaign. In 8th position, I'm going with Millwall FC. Last campaign, they finished in 8th and missed out on the playoffs by 2 points, and they actually finished the season on a minus goal difference. They only scored the 47 goals last campaign, but they only conceded the 49 as well. Looking at Millwall's transfer business, obviously they spent big money on Josh Corbyn. I like the signing of Massimo Luongo. I think that's a good experience addition on a free transfer from Ipswich. Alfie Doughty as well for a couple £1 million from Luton, I think is a smart pickup. They brought in a couple of goalkeepers in Max Crocombe and Stephen Bender as well, the latter coming in on loan. Obviously Zian Fleming's move to Burnley has been made permanent, but apart from that, in terms of the departures, there's nothing really too significant. I think Millwall have probably slightly improved on their squad from last campaign. They've got a great manager in Alex Neil as well. He's been there for a little bit of time now, and there's a lot of quality in this squad. Jafat Tanganga is still at Millwall at the time of recording as well, and obviously they've got a great striker in Ivanovic at just only 20 years of age. I could see them having a flirt with the playoffs next campaign. Do I think they've quite got enough to make it in there as of right now? No, but they're not a million miles away. In 7th position, I'm going with Norwich City. A big improvement on last campaign where they finished in 13th and were 11 points off of the playoffs, but just 8 points off of relegation. I think this season they are going to have a big flirt with the playoffs, but still just not quite have enough to get over the line. They've got a great young manager in Liam Manning. They've spent a lot of money in this transfer window so far, over £20 million in terms of transfer fees. But I think Harry Darling on a free transfer is a great pickup. The players that they've basically all spent money on have all come from overseas, so I can't really comment too much. But Jacob Wright has come in from Man City's under-21s. Jovan Makama as well has come in from Lincoln City. In terms of further additions, Daniel Grimshaw is a decent option as well from Plymouth. They have lost a couple of good players in Jonathan Rose gone to Marseille, but they got around £12.5 million in for him, and Borja Sainz has gone over to Porto, but again they got over £10 million in for him. So yeah, they've spent money. Yes, they've lost a few players as well. At the time of recording, Josh Sargent is still at the football club as well. If he stays, Norwich could have a real chance of making it into that top 6. Kenny McLean is still at Norwich. I remember him being there from a long time ago. Surely he was around in the Premier League days. Correct me down below if I am wrong, but I think Norwich unfortunately just quite miss out this season. Moving on then into my top 6. If you are enjoying, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. In 6th position, I'm going with Southampton FC. Obviously relegated last campaign from the Premier League, and there has been a little bit of a changeover in terms of players, and obviously they've changed the manager as well. They've brought in Will Still. There was a lot of kind of a bit of a meme around Will Still, wasn't there, a couple of years ago, but what is his actual managerial ability going to be like in England? I guess we're about to find out this season. They've spent over £10 million on a striker and centre-half who've both come in from Germany. In terms of departures, there has been a fair few, but they've got quite a lot of money in through the door. Let me know down below, Saints fans, has there been much of real significance? Obviously Kyle Walker-Peters has joined West Ham. Aaron Ramsdale has gone out on loan to Newcastle, but I feel like some of the others that have left are not that big of a blow. I think Southampton this season will have enough though still to make it into that top six. They've obviously still got a lot of quality in this squad. Flynn Downs still controlling things in the midfield. Shea Charles returns from his loan spell as well with Sheffield Wednesday. They've got some great attacking options in Ross Stewart if he can stay fit, which he just hasn't been able to do since his move from Sunderland. They've got Adam Armstrong, Cameron Archer, Ben Brereton Diaz as well, and obviously Tyler Diblin still at the club at the time of recording. There's loads of quality in this Southampton squad for the Championship. I'm backing them to finish in the top six. In fifth position, I'm going with Wrexham AFC. Now, Wrexham are always very hard to predict, especially coming into the Championship. You got some people predicting them to finish in the top two. You got some people predicting them to finish just above the relegation zone. I think they'll finish in the playoffs this season. They've recruited very well. Josh Windass on a free from Sheffield Wednesday is a great signing. Ryan Hardy provides some more competition at the top end of the pitch. Kiefer Moore, very good, experienced Championship striker. Same can be said about Connor Cody, just in the centre-half department. Lewis O'Brien from Nottingham Forest is a great signing as well. They spent over £10 million. Yes, they don't really recruit much back in terms of transfer fees. They've probably got, I don't know, maybe a 10, 20 grand, 30 grand, 40 grand, I don't know. I doubt they've got much in terms of transfer fees coming back in through the door. A lot of their money is from obviously marketing and the documentary revenue, all that sort of stuff. Paul Mullin has gone out on loan to Wigan. They've got an absolutely massive squad. There's going to be loads of players that aren't registered, but they have got still a lot of talent in there. Max Cleworth, a academy graduate, was absolutely outstanding over the last couple of seasons. They've got some great quality in the likes of Ryan Barnett as well. They've got Matty James in the midfield. You've got George Dobson in there as well. Sam Smith they spent a lot of money on in January. Jack Marriott might score some goals as well in the Championship, but they've got a massive squad, and that could be a little bit of a problem for next season. I don't think Phil Parkinson has had much of experience, I would say, in terms of managing in the Championship, but he's done an unbelievable job at Wrexham. I think they'll be very happy for a playoff finish this season. In fourth position, I'm going to go with Sheffield United. Obviously, last campaign they finished in third and were 10 points away from finishing inside those automatic promotion places, but they're also finished 14 points above Sunderland and finished inside the playoffs by 24 points in the end. Obviously, they decided to change manager. They sacked Chris Wilder, which I wasn't entirely convinced by, if I'm being completely honest. They've brought in Ruben Sellers as well, the former Hull City manager. Some of their recruitment so far, they brought in Tyler Binden from Nottingham Forest. I think that's a great signing. He was very good at Reading last campaign. Louis Barry was great at Stockport. His time at Hull didn't really work out through injury, and some of their other additions, I don't know really much about players from is it Bulgaria or the Hungarian divisions? I'm pretty sure it is Bulgaria. A couple of youngsters that have come in from there. Obviously, they've lost Vinny Souza to Wolfsburg, which is a bit of a blow. Anul Ahed Mazodic has gone over to Feyenoord as well for just over £5 million. Ryan Brewster turned down a new deal. They've sold Kiefer Moore probably for that assist to Tommy Watson in the playoff final. But there's still a lot of quality in this Sheffield United squad, and they've still got Gustavo Hamer at the time of recording as well. There's plenty of quality in the likes of Michael Cooper and Harrison Burrows, two very good young talents in there. They could maybe do with another striker or two to come through the door. There's still more business to be done. Maybe another central midfielder as well if Gustavo Hamer does move on. But I think on the whole, Sheffield United are going to have another solid season and finish inside the playoffs, but they need some centre-halves. In third position, I'm going to go with Coventry City. Obviously, last campaign, they finished in fifth and lost out in the playoff semi-finals to eventual winners Sunderland. They finished inside the playoffs by 3 points and were 31 points away from finishing inside the automatic promotion places. Since they changed manager and brought in Frank Lampard for is it Michael Robbins? It's not Michael Robbins. What's his first? Mark Robbins. Then I think they have certainly improved. They've not done loads of business so far. I think Kyle Rushworth is a good loan addition from Brighton. They brought in Kane Kessler Hayden as well, which I think is a smart addition as well from Aston Villa on a permanent. They've lost Louis Binks over to Denmark, but again, there's not really been too much transfer business that has happened from a Coventry City point of view. There's still a lot of quality in this squad from last campaign. Matt Grimes, I thought was a great addition in January. Is there enough firepower in Hadji Wright, Ellis Sims and Thomas Asante? I guess only time will tell, but all of them are on long-term contracts. They've all got at least 2 years, in some cases 3 years, left on their deals as well. So it'll be interesting to see where Coventry do finish come the end of the campaign, but I'm backing them to have a successful season. With Thomas and Kitchen at the back, I'm backing them to finish inside the top 3. In second position, I'm going with Birmingham City. I'm backing them to do an Ipswich from a couple of seasons ago, go straight from League One all the way through to the Premier League, and obviously last campaign I'm pretty sure they broke the EFL points record, or they might have broke the League One points record, which is an absolutely outstanding achievement. Chris Davies did a very good job there last campaign, and they've been very busy in this transfer window so far. Obviously they've brought in a few players from abroad, which I don't know much about. They've made the deal of Taylor, Garden, Hickman a permanent one as well. Brightside Samuel on a free transfer from Fenerbahce is a good pickup. Obviously he was great at QPR a couple of seasons ago. Damari Gray returns to England and returns to Birmingham as well, probably a little bit of a point to prove. Tommy Doyle on loan from Wolves is a great signing. Erin Cashin, will he even start for Birmingham, which goes to show how great their options are at the back, but that is a great signing. James Beadle, I'm not 100% sure on that one, but obviously Ryan Alsop did very well last campaign. They've done well to get rid of Bailey Peacock Farrell out on loan as well. They've got a few of their other fringe players out on loan. They've not really lost much in the way of significant transfer departures. Obviously Alfie May was sold to Huddersfield, but was he really going to play much this campaign, with when you think of the players that are probably ahead of him going into this season? The money that was spent on Furuyashi as well, obviously he's coming up from Stade Rennais. They've still got Jay Stansfield as well, they spent big money on last summer. Sometimes it was 10 million, then it was 12 million, then it was 15 million, then it was 150 million that they'd spent on Jay Stansfield, but he obviously proved his worth last campaign. They've got Awata in the midfield. Clara was probably the best centre-half League One has ever seen last campaign. There's an unbelievable amount of talent in this Birmingham squad. They've got a great manager, lots of money behind them, and backing them to go back-to-back. And finally then, my Championship title winners this campaign, like, comment and subscribe if you haven't already, are Ipswich Town. Obviously relegated from the Premier League last campaign, they ended the season with a little bit of a whimper, but they've got arguably the best manager in the division in Kieran McKenna. Their recruitment on the whole so far has been smart, I would say. They've got in some experience in the like of David Button, who's obviously going to be a third or fourth choice. Ashley Young comes in as well, and now 40 years of age to provide some experience. They spent big money on Matusiwa, who's come in over from Stade Rennais, over £10 million on him. Obviously the big sale was Liam Delap. Just over £30 million has come in for him, which is obviously a great sale for them. But apart from that, nothing really too significant. Obviously, club captain Sam Morsey has left to go over to the Kuwait. Not a country I've heard of before, if I'm being 100% honest with you. But they're apparently in... He's gone over to Kuwait FC, who play in Kuwait. I don't really know what's going on there, but Sam Morsey leaving is obviously a little bit of a blow. Cameron Burgess going to Swansea was also a bit of a surprising one, and Tuan Zebis made the step back up into the Premier League with Burnley. But you look at the quality that is still in this Ipswich squad. The likes of Jacob Greaves was unbelievable at Hull the last time he was in the Championship. Darrow O'Shea, he signed a new contract with the club as well. Leif Davis got loads of assists last time that he was in this division. Jack Taylor's probably got a bit of a point to prove as well. Amari Hutchinson still with the club. Sammy Schmoddick scored loads of goals at Blackburn last time he was in this division. Jaden Philogene was great at Hull. Jack Clark was great at Sunderland. Nathan Broadhead could be moving to Wrexham, which is probably quite likely. George Hurst at the top end of the pitch. Wes Burns, Connor Chaplin, loads of talent in this squad. Brilliant manager. I'll be baffled if Ipswich aren't a Premier League club this time next season. Whether it's first, second, sixth, it doesn't matter. They are going up 100% this season. But anyway, I'm going to leave it there then for today's video. If you have enjoyed, don't forget to drop a like on there for me and subscribe to the channel as well. If you are new, 100 likes, as I mentioned at the start of today's video, would be massively appreciated. Don't forget to get your thoughts and predictions in down in the comment section down below. Let me know down below your top 6 and also your bottom 3 as well. Now, the Championship is the league that previously I have spent the least amount of time focusing on, but as a Bradford City fan, now we're up into League One, I'm going to be starting to focus more on the Championship, and we might even do some videos surrounding the Championship, so make sure you are subscribed for that. Thank you all for watching. Obviously you're not going to agree with all of my predictions, so let me know why you disagree down below. Don't just call me a melt. Thank you all for watching, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you very soon for another one.